All right, the recording has started.
Good evening. This is a meeting of the Police Commissioners Advisory Committee, and the date is June 30th, 2025. We have a quorum of members. That would be, well, I'd like to people introduce themselves. I'm Ron Wilkinson, the co-chair.
Scott Onion, town meeting member from precinct 10 and member of the PCAC. I'm John Hilliard, town meeting member from precinct 11 and also member of the PCAC.
Christine.
Christine Knopf, town meeting member, precinct 15, and also a member police commission.
Okay, so that's 4 out of 7. So we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was on May 19th, 2025. Does anyone have any comments about the minutes?
19th.
Good to me.
Nice and comprehensive.
Yeah. We learned a little bit more about the AI and policing and record keeping at the town meeting, but we'll discuss that later. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All in favor? We'll do,
Because we're not all in the room, can we do a roll call vote,
we're
please?
just about to vote on the minutes. We just have to vote.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We both apologize.
So, are you guys comfortable with voting on the minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, so we'll go. So let's just.
I made the motion. I think John seconded it. Yes.
Yeah, seconded it. So we'll do a roll call vote. So John,
I vote aye. John Hilliard.
do you want to?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay, just a minute. Okay.
Scott Onion, I vote aye.
Joe,
Christine Knopf, aye.
yeah, and Joe. Okay, so that's,
Chair.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so that's, what, five ayes and one abstention?
That sounds right.
4
Okay.
ayes and 1 abstention.
Four ayes and one abstention. Only 5 of us here? 1, 2, 3, 4,
No,
5,
You guys are taking, right?
6. There were 6 of us.
Yeah.
Christine.
We have
Well,
Chris and we have Joe.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, I didn't see Joe come in, sorry.
Snuck in. Alright, Scott.
Okay, so 5 ayes and one abstention. And so the minutes are accepted, as written. Okay. So next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone signed up for public comment, Sarah?
There's no one signed up for public comment, but Michael Keaveny, I'm sorry, last name spelled Keaveney, is in attendance and he's not a member. So if Michael, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function to indicate so, and I can unmute you.
Yeah, muted.
I don't see any movement.
Okay, so I guess we'll assume that doesn't want to speak.
If he does, you're also welcome to email me. My email is in the agenda.
Just for everyone to know, it's Michael Keaveny. He's
sorry.
the union president for the police department. I'm sure if he had something to say, I'm sure you would be hearing from him.
Noted.
Okay, by the way, I forgot to introduce the staff who might be on the call. So that sounded like Paul Campbell, Deputy Superintendent Paul Campbell, who's a staff from the police department. Is Susan Harris on?
Yes, Susan is here.
Okay, Susan Harris, representative of the town council. And is anybody else staff on?
No, I mean, I'm here.
Yeah, Sarah Kaplan from the diversity office. And I know that the HR representative is on vacation, so yeah. Okay, so next item on the agenda are the reports. So first is the monthly civilian feedback report, which is normally given by Sarah. So would you like to go ahead, Sarah?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. This month we received from the last time I did the report was in February because we had not gotten any responses. And then this report was for the time between February 19th, 2025 through June 16th, 2025. We received 2 additional responses that were logged and counted toward the data. Both were described as very negative by the respondents. The first was logged on June 8th, 2025. And officers were names of officers were redacted per paragraph 10 of the PCAC charge. And the second was logged on the 12th of July, 2020. Sorry, uh, it should say June. My apologies. 12th of June, 2025 at 9:31 a.m. No identifying information was included. Please see the information below. And the comments were as follows.
2025.
So, logged on June 8th, 2025, the following was reported. On June 5th, around approximately 9:15 p.m., while working at a DoorDash delivery, I was pulled over by a police officer. I believe his name and identification redacted. I calmly exited my vehicle and began walking toward the officer to explain I was working and hoped the stop would be quick. Without clear warning or explanation, the officer escalated the situation, aggressively yelled at me, and placed me in handcuffs. As a single woman, I felt extremely but unable and safe. I don't felt like I did anything to receive that type of force from the officer. I repeatedly asked why I was being detained and requested a supervisor because I felt unsafe. 2 other officers arrived, names and identification redacted, and continued to act with hostility. I was denied the ability to retrieve my ID from my vehicle and felt unsafe. Witnesses observed and recorded the situation, including officers threatening them for asking questions. After being threatened with arrest and emotionally breaking down, officers finally uncuffed me, issued a ticket, and told me to leave. Witnesses stayed with me for support and affirmed my rights may have been violated.
Wow, that's pretty heavy. It's interesting that that's in the civilian feedback, as opposed to one of the, could be, I'll say heavy duty complaints, but it's good that we're getting this at all. Okay,
And the second was logged and it's correctly marked in the, here it says on the 12th of June, not the 12th of July. My apologies again. Was bringing my 5-year-old to school. There was a construction happening that affected the regular traffic pattern. I tried to politely ask an officer that was standing nearby if I could make a turn to get into the road where the school was located. As soon as I began to speak, he interrupted me with a very angry expression and yelled at me to, quote, get out of here repeatedly. I was not offered even a second to ask the question as he continued to yell at me. My son was scared and asked why the officer was yelling at his mother. I would completely understand the officer's demeanor if there was a dangerous situation occurring, but it was a routine morning school traffic and he was drinking a coffee in the road. Myself and other teachers instruct the children that police are trusted community helpers and they can approach them if in trouble. My son is now confused about this because I did nothing wrong and got yelled at. My family is very supportive of law enforcement, but this kind of interaction sends kids the wrong message about who they can trust in the community.
that also sounds pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So were those, were these concerns, were they forwarded to the police department?
Nothing was forwarded. It was documented as part of this report.
Okay,
I can just jump in here a little bit. Both of those made it to internal affairs.
okay. And are they being investigated now, or is the investigation completed by internal affairs?
I don't know if the investigation is completed. I believe it is. I believe both of these are close. I can tell you that as of about a week ago, the second one, he was unable to identify who that officer might be. There isn't enough specificity. He pulled he did look into it. There were 64 people out on assignments that could involve traffic between traffic posts and detail officers, things like that. He pulled body camera footage from everybody around that time. There was only one body cam activation during a time that might coincide with this, and it was completely unrelated to anything like this. So absent more information, he wasn't able to identify who this person might be referring to.
Okay, so, but did the person who filed who filled in the form identify?
No.
Yeah, so. if
So
you-
as I said in the second report, there was no identifying information provided.
Okay, that's what I actually missed
In the
that.
first report, there was identifying information which was redacted. But in the second report, there was no identifying information provided.
So, I think, I know we're gonna discuss this form later. I think,
Yeah.
sort of put on the, postpone for later discussion. It might be worth explicitly asking for reminding folks that if they provide identifying information, we can confirm, and if they don't, we can't. That is, it's somewhat frustrating to have a report that you can't follow up on. I'm assuming this is one of the, I mean, it's hard to say, but I'm assuming this is one of the days with construction on Beacon where basically the entire roadway was under construction. Is that why 64 different officers were on duty on?
That actually, I don't know the answer, but there's a significant amount of construction going on in Brookline on any given weekday. And so I don't know what the exact number of detail officers or officers out doing traffic assignments would be, but during the summertime, during the warmer weather months, it's substantial Monday through Friday.
I mean, I'll just, my own personal experience trying to cross Beacon on some of those school mornings was somewhat frustrating because I live on one side and the school is on the other. And during the repaving, a lot of the places across Beacon were closed. I can see how that could result in a heated interaction. And also that it might be very unclear which of the many intersections of Beacon was responsible. Yeah.
Can we have, it probably can't, I was just wondering if, I mean, the Driscoll School, for example, is right off Beacon. I was just kind of wondering if that might have been that school, but.
Yeah, it would be either that or Ridley, probably.
Yeah,
I mean, or,
There's also construction happening at Piers.
yeah,
So
Right.
Yeah, I just, I'm not sure it says Beacon. Beacon is obviously
doesn't
Main
say.
Street or whatever, but it could have been anywhere.
it doesn't say where it is. It doesn't say what school. There's no information that I was provided that could help locate this individual.
I mean,
Well, I mean, on June 12th, that was a Thursday, and so I know on that specific day, there was construction around Driscoll where Washington Street was shut down, so you couldn't go from Beacon anywhere in that direction. And the reason I know this is because I was doing administrative warrants for the National Grid, and so I had a hard time myself getting over in that direction. So I could see where, you know, if someone was going and taking their kid to Driscoll, for example, they'd have a hard time doing it if they didn't know how to get around the traffic. And I could also see where a police officer might be frustrated because I'm sure a lot of people were probably giving them a hard time just throughout the day. And it could just be a case where it was just, you know, unfortunate timing.
and traffic,
Not to say that's okay to be rude or anything like that, but of course. But
especially an actual police officer in that.
Yeah.
I think that might.
and traffic, I mean, school drop-off traffic spikes incredibly in the 10 minutes around.
Yeah.
Opening, so, yeah, yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but the other thing I'd love to follow up on is DPW and scheduling that particular work. I'm sure they had their own constraints, but that was kind of guaranteed to produce some heated tempers.
Okay, so for me, it's a noted that we don't have any, ready way to follow up on this, but I very much wish we could. And because that's the kind of thing that makes me wonder if we should. Well, certainly when, as you mentioned, Scott, when we talk about updating the form, we can
Yeah.
point out to people that we can only follow up, if we've got enough information to follow up with.
Yeah, and if they want to be semi-anonymous, it's possible we could give them a contact at town hall to follow up on in a week or whatever and see if more information was required. Like, they don't necessarily have to give their information if they're going to follow up themselves to find out what happened. Or you could say, mention that these are reviewed at the monthly PCAC meeting, and they could be, watching online right now and realize that we can't do anything at the moment with the report.
I mean, I would just think that in the form, if you make date, time, location a mandatory field.
Yeah.
You can make them mandatory, but the thing is, the form, making them mandatory might mean people won't use the form.
Well, I mean, what good's the form if we can't figure out what's actually happening,
Yeah.
right? So like this, for example, if we have no way of figuring out who did this, right, we're still at square one.
I feel like there's probably a middle point here where, like, even if you don't make it mandatory, if you can remind people that, like, I would like to just start keeping track of statistics ourselves, because I know it is one of the higher, like, outcomes when we review these is that we can't follow up on it, we can't substantiate it. I feel like even just putting that at the top of the form and saying, just so you know, like, 40% of the reports here we're not able to follow up on because people don't provide enough information. So
I'll
Mike.
throw out also, if there are some fields that I agree, there are some fields that if you made them mandatory, that it might have a little bit of a chilling effect on people's willingness to come forward. But I think date, time, and location, I think those are ones that people probably, even if they are going to remain anonymous, I don't think that's going to have much of an impact on people willing to, file an anonymous report. So, if you made those fields anonymous, I think, maybe you see a little bit better in terms of our ability to follow up.
Well, yeah, I feel like if you know the date, time, and location, you could probably have a pretty good idea who was in that sector on that day at that time.
Yeah, I think date, time, and location, you probably narrow it from 64 down to 5.
Yeah. And so from there, it'd be a lot easier to figure out who did what or who likely did what, or talk to all 5 of them.
Yeah.
I agree.
We're largely in agreement on this, and we are going to be talking about the form further later in the meeting, so I want to kind of table that for now. Okay, that sounds good. And was that those were the only 2, is that right, Sarah?
Those were the 2 for the time period between February and the middle of June.
And just confirming, we're expecting that the other has been referred to internal affairs, and presumably at our next meeting we'll hear.
Yeah, I was putting down.
Is that? I'm restating what you said, Deputy Superintendent Campbell, just to make sure I understand correctly. Do we need to do anything affirmatively to get the results of the investigation?
Now, I don't know what the process has been as far as Ron. Does Ray Richards, Lieutenant Richards, communicate with you or Paul?
Yeah, I have talked with him, and in fact, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I have actually seen a lot of unredacted reports at the police headquarters, right in his office. And but we don't talk, that doesn't mean we talk on a regular basis, but I just a good working relationship with him.
Okay.
And I would expect from what I've seen, and I can follow up, that he will have he does seem to investigate things in a fairly timely manner, and I would expect that he would have the information. And there actually have been times in the past when I've emailed him explicitly about something, and he's come back pretty promptly. So.
Yeah, I mean, I touched base with him on the first one just a little bit, so I know for sure that he was looking into it. I can tell you that the incident, I believe, was captured on multiple body cams. So, there's significant understanding of exactly what happened. I can tell you that I did not watch the body cam, but what has been relayed to me, the message that she seems to be portraying is that I calmly, got out of my car and I, just inquired with the officer. I am told that the body cam footage tells a significantly different picture,
Well,
but we'll see what the investigation
yeah, turns out.
shows.
I mean, just for reference, well, I mean, I think it is interesting and probably the general public doesn't know, like the triggers for body cam activation, like this meets all the triggers. It's not, I mean, I'm glad, but not surprised to see that lots of body cameras were activated. Because they're turned on during an interaction, it's not terribly surprising that they wouldn't capture the other incident, the traffic, any kind of routine interaction with regard to traffic, we call a traffic detail. I don't know what to do about that other than like, like, again, trying to guide the public towards places where we really do need more information from them, because it's not something that our cameras would pick up ordinarily. And I mean, having dealt with the policy, again, I don't think that the solution is necessarily to try to figure out how to trigger the cameras for a routine traffic stop like this, or a traffic is not, because it's not even a stop, right? It's an interaction with someone to presumably roll down their window and talk to an officer. It doesn't meet any of the criteria that would trigger comments. Anyway, just
So, as it is. Okay, so 5B, and I'd like it to, if I would appreciate it, Sarah, if you could continue sharing your screen and kind of roll up to where we've got the two reports. Yeah. Yeah,
So
okay.
right now
So-
I have the one that's
Yeah.
dated June 20th open.
Yeah, okay,
Or do you
so
want the May one open first?
we can do the main one first.
Okay.
Okay, but let me just kind of give some context here. So, in addition, this is there is yet another means by which someone can initiate a report concerning the police. So we've just seen the regular feedback form, and on the police department's website, there is a complaint form to fill in. The other way people can fill in, actually, it's the same complaint form as for the police website, but it goes from the PCAC page instead of the police department page. And the reason why we have that alternate way of initiating a complaint goes back to 5 years ago when we were on the police reform committee, and we were wondering about situations in which someone might feel uncomfortable going to the police themselves because the report might be buried or something like that. So we wanted to have an alternative way for someone to initiate a complaint, and then it does go to the police internal affairs. But the idea is that we're aware that the report went in, and if someone was inclined to suppress it, they would just kind of know that people are aware that the complaint was filed. That was the general thinking at the time. So, but this month, well, actually, the end of May and one in May and one in June. This happens very rarely, but one in May, and this is the first time it's happened since Paul and I have been co-chairs. But one in May and one in June, the complaints came directly to the PCAC website, and they were forwarded to the police internal affairs. And actually, I believe they were, at least one of them was referred to Lieutenant Campbell. Was that the May one? That was, May 20 referred online after reviewing by one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this was directly reviewed by Lieutenant Ray Richards, who's the internal affairs officer.
just to clarify, these two were filed directly with the police department?
Yeah, they were filed to the PCAC website, and then they were forwarded by Sarah to the police department. Did I understand that correctly, Sarah?
Yeah, so the civilian feedback form, the first one, the ones that we just reviewed.
So there are two feedback forms. There's
Yeah.
the civilian feedback form, which
Yeah.
is run through SurveyMonkey currently, and I check it once a month and I create a report if we have something to report.
That is that the one we're looking at now?
Then there is a citizens complaint form that the PCAC monitors. It is exactly the same as the police department civilian complaint form, which looks like this. We literally took every single like line and moved it into our form. The only difference is that this form is monitored by the PCAC. I don't have access to this that goes directly to the police station.
Yeah.
So
So
if I
ju-
get a complaint from the PC and it pops into my email, it doesn't go through SurveyMonkey. It comes as an email into my email address. I forward it to the chairs and I forward it to Ray Richards.
So I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear. The form entries that we just finished reviewing, the monthly report, that comes
Yeah.
from SurveyMonkey
Yes,
on the town website, but on this page or a different page?
different page.
Different page. So there's three different ways okay.
Yes, there are three different ways that a civilian can complain to the police, two of which the PCAC can monitor, one of which they cannot.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
we do we know numbers at least of complaints that go directly to the police department bypassing PCAC?
I don't.
Hmm.
If we get like Ray Richards will send a report to the PCAC and send them to the chairs, but like I don't get a copy of the forms if it goes directly through to the police department. I don't work for the police department, and there is no way to get me a copy of those forms, which is why the PCA created the citizens complaint form version of the form, so that like the PCAC can monitor these complaints. And this complaint form is mentioned in the SurveyMonkey version of the form, and we explain the difference. We say, look, this citizen feedback form, you can put positive or negative things. It's and it's reported back to the PCAC. But if you have a complaint that you would like investigated, we suggest you use either the police department's civilian complaint form or the PCAC's citizen complaint form. And we give links to both.
Yeah, there are, I mean, may ask more questions than answers perhaps, but I know there is a number presented in the police annual report on number of civilian complaints filed with the Office of Professional Responsibility. I should follow up next time we have a report and figure out if that is just ones that come through the police department form directly, if that includes our numbers.
I'm gonna guess it includes anything that actually gets investigated, no matter how it came in, but I don't know that for sure. We could certainly ask Ray Richards.
Yeah, my accountant right now just wants to make all those numbers end up.
Yeah.
Figure out
Yeah,
what the
Excuse me, how would a citizen know which one to fill out?
oh, that is a very good question, and it's supposedly that's explained on the website, but I totally agree that we need to think about whether it's confusing or not. In theory, no matter which one they fill out, it will get investigated. So,
there was a long and somewhat unsatisfying debate on PCAC about this 2 years ago.
When it started, it lasted, we had a conversation about this that I think lasted multiple meetings.
So it may be time to revisit it, but there's a little bit of scar tissue built up, I guess.
yeah, so to go back to the one we started to review, could you put that back on the screen, please,
Hold on
Sarah?
1 second.
And so
Here we
just
go.
I'm just restating my understanding. So this is a thing which came through the PCAC version of the same form, which is on the police department website,
Right,
not the SurveyMonkey.
yes,
Yes, okay,
yeah, okay.
now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, so, by the way, it took, before I became co-chair, I didn't realize exactly how complicated it could get either, so. Anyway. Okay, so, this was a woman who was concerned that her teenage sons were uh, uh, um, were spoken to by the police at a Target because there was concern about there being an alleged theft. I presume it was a shoplifting kind of a theft. And because the kids were innocent, the mother felt that they've been treated unfairly for being approached. And the result, there was an investigation and there was body worn camera footage. And basically, Lieutenant Richards contacted the mother and talked to her about it, about the situation, explaining why the officers approached the way they did, and the body camera footage showed that they were actually being rude to the kids. And in this particular case, the complainant, the mother, decided it was satisfied with the explanation, as it says in the last line, and chose not to pursue the complaint further. So the case was classified as withdrawn. So that was the feeling like it was kind of a case there, but that's the way it turned out. And I did get I did the chairs just got it.
So there's two things I'm noticing here. One is I think the redaction was incomplete on the third line there.
First word.
First word. And so could we get that fixed?
Yeah.
When it's posted. And
It's already posted. I don't know what
I know,
you want to do.
we can at least whatever we can do to
Maybe we could take it down and repost it.
to put the horses back in the barn. And then the other question I had was the involvement of the assistant principal. It seemed like this was an incident that occurred at Target. I'm not sure how the school principal was involved, and whether it was appropriate that they be involved in a situation which doesn't involve the schools.
I'm gonna suspect that well, I don't know this for sure, but I'm just wondering if the principal also just happened to be there and said, "Hey, I'm the school principal and I know these kids," or something.
I don't know. I'm just saying that I have questions about the involvement of the principal. I think that I'd like to have addressed if possible.
Well, so the theft was at Target. It doesn't mean the kids were at Target
Well, yeah,
when they were questioned by the police. Right, so it could have been at the high school or whatever, or at some school. Right, they happened to have a principal out there when the police came by and whatever.
there's lots of reasonable explanations. I'm
Right.
just curious just which it is.
Hmm.
You don't want, especially if they're found innocent, you don't want the principal being, you don't want their academic stuff being jeopardized by something which ends up not being related to them at all, right? Academic standing, that was perhaps. Anyway, is there a way we can have that question addressed?
We can always ask Lieutenant Richards for more information. This is a kind of a summary report. What I found is he typically has a lot of other kinds of documents that go and he summarizes it in the end, but he probably has other things he can say about it. So I suppose I can ask him that question.
Yeah, I had a similar question, just looking at it. Maybe it's not a similar question. Another question that's like, if the officers were, rude and aggressive, and it sounds like it was deemed that the actions were appropriate. Does that mean like there was the appropriate amount of rudeness and aggressiveness? Or like, I guess I'm just trying to understand like how to interpret just the fact that it was withdrawn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's funny. We're all making kind of assumptions about things, but I would have thought that if Lieutenant Richards shared the body camera footage with the mother, she could see whether the kids were exaggerating about how aggressive the police officers were.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, like I'm just worried of making assumptions, right?
Yeah,
Like we could explain it. I think just asking for a little bit more detail about about whether this was an appropriate amount of aggressive contact or whether it was that the footage showed the conduct not to be aggressive.
Yeah, okay, so we certainly asked that. Okay. Should we go into the next one, please, Sarah? Okay, this was another one. By the way, this is another one. I think the redaction is also incomplete, but it has to do with the it looks like you went out of his way not to redact the particular detective in this particular case, which is interesting. But this was a situation in which this detective was actively investigating a case in which the redacted complainant was the victim in the case, and the victim felt that the detective was treated her harshly. I guess I put it that way. And what I find interesting about this is that the matter was referred to Paul Campbell as opposed to just to Ray Richards. Do you have any comment about that, Paul?
Yeah, there's a little bit of I won't call it a complicated backstory, but there was a little bit of history that the chief felt like it would be better if it was referred to me as opposed to leaving it in the traditional path of internal affairs. And so there's I did the redactions on this also, so I intentionally did not redact the names of the police officers, mostly because I redacted it in accordance with how I redact anything under the public records law. And generally speaking, police officer names is something that I don't redact. I have redacted in the past and been overturned by the supervisor of records on appeal, so I don't do it anymore. Anyway, that's why the redactions are they would include only civilians, but not police officers. But yeah, it was the chief's opinion that a different set of eyes, aside from Lieutenant Richards, would make sense through no fault of his own. Nothing that he did that was in any way concerning. Just there's a little bit of a history with this case.
That's intriguingly vague.
I mean, I'm satisfied with it. Like,
Well, I could tell you to maybe clear up a little bit of it. Detective Malloy is the sexual assault and domestic violence supervisor. So maybe if that clarifies a little bit of, and also juveniles, of why I might be a little bit vague in some of the history.
I'm just voicing support for anyone recusing themselves when they feel like it best serves the investigation. So I've got no problem with that. I'm curious. This is sort of patting on the back, Deputy Superintendent, but I'm curious if there was any training that we give officers in mediation. I mean, it seems like a successful outcome, and I'm wondering how it can be replicated in the future, if that's something that we're actively trying to encourage.
I always would, when I did internal affairs, I would always consider mediation, because I would generally find, not always, but in a lot of situations, it really is not the only outcome that leaves people with satisfaction, but generally speaking, mediation tends to give the best results in terms of people walk away from a complaint where there's been a good mediation. Those are the times when people walk away feeling good, both sides, or feeling like, okay, I had some resolution here. If I would, find against the officer, the civilian would feel okay, the officer would feel frustrated and angry. If I would find in favor of the officer feels good, the civilian doesn't feel good. And a lot of times it would be not sustained, meaning there wasn't really enough evidence to prove one way or the other. And so it gets documented and filed, and both sides kind of, are left feeling not so great. And so mediation is something where, it's the only time you really do have a great opportunity to, to kind of air your grievances and maybe really resolve things. And in this particular case, I wasn't sure if it would work. And it just kind of, went that way, and it was very successful. Well, I think both sides left that mediation feeling really good about where things stand.
Okay, so it's good that this particular investigation had a good outcome, and processes were in place to ensure that that happens.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I'm saying, I'd like to see us include courses in mediation and professional development or something like that to sort of encourage that, to see if we can get more outcomes like this, by sort of training officers appropriately, or providing training that.
Yeah, we have had a little bit of that, and just in general, it's something I've spoken to Ray Richards about a couple of times, about cases that we'll talk about his cases sometimes, just as an option, something to consider. So yeah, he is aware of it, and yeah, I think we get a little bit of training in how to do them, and truthfully, sometimes it's, I don't know, sometimes it's just a lot of common sense. Sit down, talk to people, be reasonable, treat people respectfully, and allow everyone to speak and be heard. And, a lot of times it really is just that simple.
So in this case, would you say that Detective Sergeant Malloy basically was doing what she was supposed to be doing, but there was just some sort of misunderstanding?
In this case, so what led to the dispute? My sense is that the person who made the complaint, Sergeant Malloy, was doing what she was supposed to be doing, but she was frustrated. The complainant had done some things in her case. The complainant is a victim in this case. No two ways about it. Multiple times, she was a victim. She had done some things in this case that were not ideal, and it made it very difficult for this case to proceed. And when that information came to Sergeant Malloy had a conversation with her, and she had been working on this case, detectives been working on this case, and was frustrated. And I think that frustration came across. And although she was right, her delivery may not have been ideal, which in the mediation, she acknowledged. It may not have been ideal. Her frustration with the way, ultimately what the victim did, and again, no doubt in my mind, she is the victim. It killed the case. DA couldn't go forward. And so that was where the frustration came from with the detective, because the detective believed in this case.
So, but procedurally, Detective Sergeant Malloy was doing the right thing, but I think she could probably use this as a learning lesson in terms of how to try to manage her frustrations and things like that, right?
I would agree with that, yes. And I think she would agree with that also.
Okay, some interesting cases there. Okay, next on the agenda, well, the
Next
topics,
on the agenda is coordinated topics of interest.
yeah. And the first item we have on there is for Kimball Richardson, who is not here. So we'll skip that. The next is biannual assessment of the complaint procedure. I can just kind of give a general update. I did meet at Peace headquarters with Ray Richardson, and I went over about 40% of the so far of the unredacted reports with all the supporting documentation. And it's interesting stuff, but it's a lot to go through. And I need to schedule at least 1 or 2 more sessions in July to go over the rest of them, and then I can kind of write up a report about any patterns I see if they're there or any kind of notable kinds of things. So I expect by September I can give a reasonable report about everything. But it is taking a long time and it is a lot of stuff to go through. And I appreciate everything that goes into an investigation at this particular point. Okay, so next is the existing police data systems, which Scott offered to look into. And I know you sent an email earlier today, but why don't you just kind of talk about it?
Yeah, I'll just I had said at the last meeting to try to it turns out it was a year ago when I looked at my email. We had a meeting at the police department where they walked us through the Larimore system. I think they had set up a demo account for us and walked us through how data is entered into the system, how dispatch works, what you see in the cruiser, what the dispatch sees, what you can search for after the fact. I think we got an early demo of the lookup for the body cam information as well, and what it looks like when anyone is auditing with that or going back through it for claim procedures. It was super useful to me, and as I said in the last meeting, my goal was to try to broaden it. We've got new members of the committee as well to try to make that available to the rest of the committee. And so I sent an email basically asking the two folks who'd done the demo for us before whether they're available to come to one of our meetings. I give them the meeting dates till December. I mean, I think there's going to be some logistics which we'll have to work out. If they're available, can you give a demo here as opposed to the police department? Would we have to have our meeting there? If we do, can we do our hybrid meeting? There's a lot of logistics, but I've kicked off the conversation. We'll figure out how to do it. Worst case, I'll take screenshots and sort of do my best slideshow version of it. But I think it really would be best if we could see the live demo that we were able to a year ago. So.
Okay, that sounds good. Anyone have any questions?
And again, I just bring it back to the police report. It does give you a better sense for what tools are available to investigate something like that. Yeah, we do know where every officer is at any point in time. The dispatch system has the record. So if the complainant had said this intersection at 8:06, you'd know exactly which officers were at that intersection at 8:06. It's useful.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, so next is the artificial intelligence efforts in policing and record keeping. Any update on that?
A couple of weeks ago, I met at the station with David Pilgrim and just had a question and answer session, and then also got a tour. It's all Larimore. Got some sense of the data systems as well. I'm trying to think, I would say probably I can do a quick report next meeting. I can write something up and present it more formally. The top of mind sort of takeaways or thoughts are that sounds like there's really no AI in use right now. There are, I asked some questions like, okay, what if officer sort of took their notes and uploaded it online and then transcribed it and pasted it back? They could do that. That would already violate existing policies in terms of data use. So there's some coverage there. I think there are some systems that might be of interest. And it's it depends, but basically there's no AI stuff, but there might be some stuff on the horizon, maybe related to traffic monitoring and, that type of thing, but nothing in terms of generative. So there might be some other research needed. My overall sense was that this could be an area where it's actually useful for us to do some policy level thinking and to collaborate with David and the police department, because it's a lot of work. He's a busy guy. He's responsible for a lot of stuff. And I was thinking that this could be an area where we could be helpful. And his perspective I also brought up okay, that the town is going to be doing some policies related to this. And his perspective was that having overlapping policies isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good thing because there could be a town-wide policy that no one reads. And then there's a department level policy that, is taught and trained and enforced or whatever more closely. And so that if there is something that's more tailored to policing, it might be worthwhile to have, something along those lines. I would say further areas for questions. Honestly, that I think that there's some, this is not necessarily within the purview probably of the committee, but it's like, there's time saving opportunity that's possible with AI, right? And so I think there's some questions that might be like, okay, on average, how much time do officers spend writing reports? And how much time does that keep them from patrolling? And how does that relate to staffing? And like, it starts to lead you down a path where it's like, well, if we could make report writing 30% faster, then maybe the hiring pressures that we're under could be alleviated in some way. So those questions I'm not as thinking about, but it's like, okay, if AI is going to come in and I can see how it would, what policies, around labeling and use and stuff like that.
And review, I always
Yeah.
get concerned if you start having AI kind of writing things,
Sure.
we see how the transcriptions get, messed up a bit, they just get something wrong. Somebody's always got to review, but.
Yeah. So I think there's room for, I think, for us to try to help and put some thoughts down. And it sounds like from the research I've done, and I can share more next meeting, on like, San Francisco has a townwide policy, but SFPD has the police level policy. It's not unusual for there to be, overlapping policies around this type of thing. And just, the budget pressures are top of mind. And if it could help, then it seems worth trying to write some policies or trying to put some guidance around it. So that's the short summary.
Okay.
I'll just add that at the town meeting member, we were able to ask Feng Wang, the head of town IT, about the process of coming up with an AI policy. And the answer that we had gotten with regard to policing was that they wouldn't sign any contracts involving AI until there was a townwide policy in place. But the loophole that turns out to be is, as long as it's not the town paying money for things, the town is sort of aggressively trying out AI features, which are being offered as sort of freebies to their existing subscription. So like, they are using generative AI for like Canva for making posters and whatnot. And so I think there is a little bit of heightened awareness. Like, I think I felt a little more secure in the idea that we wouldn't be signing contracts for this than perhaps I should have been. That the AI is definitely being adopted by the town in various ways. And I think to your point about perhaps a police specific policy, I don't think there's necessarily a problem with using it for posters if the next Brookline Day poster has a bunch of people with 6 figures on it, or even the police department. The night out posters, if they're done with general AI, I think that is much less problematic than some of them. I think it's worth perhaps looking at the police department policy in terms of a bright line around specific sorts of, high priority data that we would want to make sure it's accurate. Right? So what you say about sort of trying to look at this from a police department perspective, independent of the town perspective.
No, I think the thing to just keep in mind is for AI, you want to use it as a tool, not like the solution, right? So when you want to draft something, that's what it's helping you do, is draft something, not do the finalized product, right? So it can give you ideas as to which direction you want to draft something, but ultimately it's your responsibility to make sure it's right.
Yep.
And it's phrased the right way and it makes sense relative to what you're trying to communicate. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think even if we felt very strongly on that line, I think that it would beg some questions of like, okay, what is the rate of reports being rejected today? And how does that change going forward? Like, what's like the feedback loop look like, and is that being improved? But yeah, I think it's super interesting. I'll try to pull together some stories for next week, but one stands out where like there's different approaches for how you could use AI. One approach is you turn your body worn camera on and the AI just makes up the entire narrative for you. And I think that's like, it's like Axelar One, or there's some tool that does that. And in certain cases, it just says Officer Joe was on the scene, and that's just made up. And then that gets like a full
that it, like leads to a very dangerous course where cases are being thrown out or, those types of things. And so that's like definitively what we don't want. But there are ways where it's like, you can imagine an officer gets into their cruiser, dictates their notes, and then the AI sort of like transcribes it nicely. And it's like, okay, that's seems less dangerous than just making up stuff. And so I think if we can provide the rails of like, this is safe use, posters, maybe narratives, whatever, I think there's opportunity for, better, I assume most people don't like writing reports. So maybe it's like better satisfaction and time savings. It feels like there's something here that could be beneficial if we can do it safely.
Yeah, I mean, for administrative stuff, right? So when Paul has to do a report to somebody, like a presentation, right? AI could help with the presentation, PowerPoint presentation, whatever, I mean, or if they have to generate stats, you plug in all the information and then it will figure it out. I mean, simple stuff like that could easily help.
I'm not terribly good at math. So stats maybe, yeah, I mean, but there's definitely some gray area. So like looking at Larimore, there are a lot of fields to fill out, right? Like, and it's not necessarily an ergonomically designed system. I'll say. And one of the fields that they're required to fill out by state law for like a traffic stop is the ethnicity of the person, right? But then if you say, well, what if we just use the body camera to like autofill that field?
That gets a little creepy.
Yeah, exactly. And now, so I'm not really interested in saying they should or shouldn't do it. I want to make sure that we have oversight of that before a decision is made, there's some discussion about it. And it's not just sort of implemented blindly as, Larimore 2.0, some kind of upgrade that we get for free. And suddenly, things are happening that no one's actually thought through. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, the next item is the update on ICE, which I believe Paul Campbell is going to give. Is he still there?
Yes. Yeah, so the update on ICE is since our last meeting, we've had one instance that I am aware of where ICE came in I shouldn't say, it's possible that we had two, but one didn't involve us at all. I believe we had ICE show up at the court. And that's something that I won't say that we weren't present for, but it was not a person that was in police custody. It was a person that was in county custody. The court is Norfolk County. We did have a person who was arrested shortly after the person was brought back and booked. We got notified. We were sent a detainer by ICE. They're connected with our fingerprint system. So they had noticed that this person was arrested. ICE was informed that we would not hold the person and that they would be bailed out and released. ICE then showed up at the police station. They actually came into the front desk. They were asked to wait outside, which they did. The person did get bailed and released, and ICE took the person into custody.
So when ICE shows up at the police station, right? Is there identity masked or unmasked?
Actually, that is I do not know the answer to that question. I'm assuming they were unmasked because I think if they showed up and they had masks on, I think that's something that I would know.
The incident with the county custody, did that happen inside the courthouse or outside the courthouse?
I am not entirely sure, but I don't believe it happened in the courtroom, but I don't know if they waited outside. I have very limited information on that. That was one I didn't even know about. I just heard about it this afternoon.
And was this, it's been a month since our last meeting, right? Were these recent? I mean, I'm looking at for like pace. Is this?
I want to say the one with the police station was end of May.
Okay.
Several weeks ago, at least.
Yeah, I think our last meeting was 19th, right? So
Yeah.
Paul, don't you think they should show you ID? I mean, this could be any disgruntled. I mean, I could put a green shirt on, a mask and a camo hat and go pound somebody. Wouldn't the police ask them for their ID at least?
Well, I would say, you know, that it's worth keeping in mind. The people that showed up, they knew who we had by name and date of birth. And so the only way they could have known that is to be connected with the federal system based on fingerprint records. As soon as we ran the fingerprints, we immediately got a call. So you got a pretty good idea that these guys are who they say they are. They know that we have somebody in custody. They know where to show up. That's not a coincidence.
I mean, I think we're in a awkward, maybe not the right word, but we, by not cooperating and in some sense having them do their arrest outside the courthouse, outside the BPD, it also means that we don't have any grounds to sort of identify the officers. We had invited them into the police department, into the station, then they could be identified and logged in as visitors, and we'd have some kind of tracking. I am not at the point where I want to revisit our non-cooperation, but I think it's worth at least floating the idea that there might be some kind of middle ground where we can ultimately better assure the safety of our residents by going through some sort of process.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, follow-up question for Paul. Like, do we happen to know if these two people were Brookline residents, or were they just two people that happened to be detained by ICE in Brookline?
The person at the court, I have no information at all. My memory is that the person who was arrested was not a Brookline resident. But I don't remember now for 100% that that's accurate, although I do think that is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know the status of that case? They were bailed and released. We presumably had a charge. Often there, if ISIS does intend to deport them, we won't ever have a resolution of the case that we had against them, or any opportunity to bring to trial. Do we? I mean,
I don't know what the result of the underlying charges. It was a traffic arrest. So relatively low level. I mean, for sure, he's not going to go to jail for it, even if he fought it all the way and was convicted. You know, the underlying charges would, you know, at worst, I would imagine, would be probation.
Just for my own information, what's the level of traffic violation that would cause someone to be fingerprinted and right? I'm assuming this isn't like running a red light.
No, that's a civil infraction. So most of the violations that you would be stopped for, red light violations, speeding, whatever, those are civil infractions. So there would be no right of arrest, even if for whatever reason you wanted to arrest this person, you simply don't have the right. There are some traffic laws. Drunk driving is one of them. This wasn't a drunk driving case. Driving without a license altogether. I mean, I'm not giving you the person's name, so I don't think there's anything wrong with telling you that this was for driving on a driver's license that is suspended. It was, and a lot of times, look, you got to have a valid license. That's just the reality. Having said that, a lot of times we don't make an arrest on something like that. This is a person with a substantial driving history, and I don't know, maybe his 6th or 7th time getting caught doing this. And so at some point, that person gets locked up. Had it been me, making this traffic stop, I probably would have locked this person up.
Okay, thank you for that report. Next item on the agenda is the proposed new civilian feedback form. And I'm just gonna ask Sarah to,
I do want to just sort of one closing comment on that. My concern, of course, is that we're on a slippery slope, right? And that the first ones are going to be places where, like, yeah, they were, they've been on a suspended license. This was a bad guy, this was a bad guy, and that increasingly these choices are going to get harder and harder and marginal, and we're going to have at some point to decide where we draw the line, and where what we do about it. So I was a lot happier this morning knowing that this hadn't happened in Brookline yet, and I'm afraid that, as again, I'll say I'm requesting that we keep this on the agenda monthly, but I'm afraid that our next meeting will have 2 or 3 or 4, and that the pace will just continue to decrease. I hope that I'm wrong about that.
when we talked about where we draw the line, the we has to include who, does that, I mean, does it have to be at the town meeting level, the select board level? It's, certainly this is at just our committee level. So, I'm just, raising the question of.
Yeah, I mean, it like, we don't have a policy about whether or not 6 or 7 suspended licenses is enough to get someone fingerprinted. But I think we should admit that fingerprinting a person in the current situation is enough to get them deported. And so thinking through our fingerprint policies might be something that you have to do, or figuring out when you book someone like this, knowing that you're not talking about just jailing them now, you're talking about potentially having them sent to a foreign country. So yeah, there is an aspect which is police policy in terms of when we make the decisions that we do. I think some of the questions about if the pace increases, what protections can we give to assure people that, if there's someone outside the courthouse every day picking up people, how do we assure our residents that that is actually at least a legitimate ICE officer, not just a random person, right? Like, so, again, it's a little early to have those conversations, but I think that in my opinion, at least, I'm afraid that the writing is on the wall.
If I could just jump in, I understand what you're saying, but one consideration is the officer has no idea of the immigration status of the person they're arresting. They're making an arrest decision independent of anything to do with that, and they're prohibited from inquiring, which is also part of department policy. And so, how is an officer to know whether or not, because who knows, maybe if the officer thought, geez, he's got a suspended license and he's done it a bunch of times before and he should suffer some consequences to it. But I don't think he should be tossed out of the country for it. So maybe this is one where I just write a summons, but he doesn't get that information. And so how is he supposed to form that I don't know. How is he supposed to acquire that information or make that decision without that information? It's just it's a tricky dynamic. So then what's the, what's the alternative? He doesn't have that information. So now he starts making decisions based on, well, this person has a thick accent and so they're likely new to the country and therefore I'm going to, conduct my activities differently based on that. I don't love.
Yeah, I don't think there's any easy answers, right?
From my perspective, I wouldn't want to go in that direction because I feel like it lends itself to biases, right? If you start to try to think about, further down the line, if they have to get fingerprinted, what that might lead to, then I'd be more concerned about the biases that lead to that train of thought to get to there. Whereas if they just focus on things black and white, so to speak, right, where, all right, that clearly they have a record of doing things they're not supposed to be doing when they're driving, right? Clearly they're imposing a risk on the public for how they're driving. So therefore, I'm going to book them, I'm gonna fingerprint them, and I'm gonna try to keep the public safe. Right? That's all they should be focusing on. They can't focus on what ICE does when they're trying to do a traffic
I
stop.
mean,
I don't
yeah.
think it's fair to them.
And I don't think racial profiling is necessarily the answer either, because
Right.
they could be throwing out a Harvard student, right?
Yeah.
Just as easily,
Yeah.
whatever fingerprints they have on file. But I do think that we could consider things like, if interaction with the police is going to result in fingerprinting, that we provide them with a card with information on an immigration attorney, right? And let them know that because they are about to be fingerprinted, there is a chance that they won't be able to contact their loved ones after this happens, right? Like, I think there are things that we can do which are humane, and in response to the situation we find ourselves in, there's a lot of things we can do.
Quick question, how does ICE get that information? Is it automatic if someone's fingerprinted that they get that information, or how does that work with the federal government?
So when we, our system is tied in to the state and to the FBI. So when we fingerprint somebody, in order to positively identify them, and it's hugely valuable to have this. I can't tell you the number of people who have come in and told us they're somebody and actually had identification indicating that they're somebody, and you fingerprint them and it turns out they're somebody else. And so there's a system that basically catalogs people who've been arrested. It gives you positive identification. But it goes to the FBI, and apparently that includes immigration. So they have access to it.
Okay, interesting situation. So next is the discussion and vote on the proposed new civilian feedback form. Would you like to lead this discussion, Sarah?
Yep. So I took all of the questions that we currently ask, and created this form. It is a draft. It is not published.
Pardon me, Sarah. We also would like it to please recap the reason why we're doing this in the first place.
So, okay. The police commission, the PCAC's civilian feedback form is currently located in SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey is not screen reader accessible. And I have also noticed that it's very cumbersome of a process to kind of go through the individual data and then individually enter it into the current report in the way that I'm doing it. And I do not want to be wrong in counting or in reporting. So I've spoken with the chairs about making this form more accessible. And then also I personally like the back end of Google and how they keep their data, and how they can help the user who's collecting the data make sure that the percentages are accurate and correct. So I these are the current questions as we currently ask them. This is basically the same order. There's a little bit of changing because I created a section that is primarily all of the required questions we currently ask. And then there's a section on demographics, which is 100% optional. At the end, in the SurveyMonkey data, there is also a section at the end about whether or not you want somebody to contact you. So originally when I did this draft, I separated that information. When I talked to the chairs, we decided to put that part into the required section. And so it's now it will show up as 2 pages when you interact with the Google form. There is one problem with the form. There is no way to give a person a copy of what they type. So the only way that Google allows you to provide people with a copy of what they've reported is if you require them through a required line to enter their email address. But because we have wanted people to not have to give us any identifying information. I did not include that in the current draft, but without that line, there is no way to give people a copy of what they've written. So that is something to be aware of when you're thinking about whether or not to use this form. The first question is date of interaction. The
It has
second,
to be recorded, which is important.
the second question is approximately what time did this interaction happen? The third question is describe what happened and where and how you felt about it. Please be as specific as possible. The fourth question is overall, how would you rate this interaction with the Brookline Police? Mark only one oval. This is a multiple choice question. You can only pick one answer when it's an oval. When it's a square, you can pick multiple answers. So this is the current scale we use, which is very positive, neutral, somewhat negative, very negative. Would you like to identify the personnel involved? Yes or no? And that's a required question. And then if you say yes, you can, there's a space, or you can skip number 6. Would you like to identify yourself? Yes or no? And then would you like a victim witness advocate to contact you? Yes or no? And then if the answer to either if the answer to 7 is yes, in number 9, you can put your information, an email address, phone number, some other way for somebody to contact you. Then you get into the demographic identification. All these questions are optional. So we broke down the age group a little bit differently in this draft than we do in SurveyMonkey. Through a discussion with the chairs, we decided on under 18, 18 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, 8 or 80 plus, or prefer not to answer. How would you describe your gender? Male, female, transgender, non-binary, prefer not to answer. How would you describe your sexual orientation? Heterosexual or straight, homosexual, gay or queer, bisexual or pansexual, prefer not to answer. How would you describe your race, ethnicity? This is a check all that apply. White, Black or African American, American Indian or Alaska Native, East Asian, Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern, Native, Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, or prefer not to answer. What is your relation to Brookline? Please click all that apply. Check all that apply, which allows you to click more than one. Live in Brookline, work in Brookline, study in Brookline, visitor to Brookline, or prefer not to answer. And then there's a submit button, which you don't see on this form, but there is a submit button. You would submit it, and then that is how you collect the data. Again, all of the demographics you can skip, and you can still collect the data.
Are any of these fields hidden, or is like question 9 always shown, even if they?
None of these questions are hidden. That's
Okay.
part, like, this is again to make this form as screener accessible as possible. All of these questions none of them are drop-down menus, because drop-down menus in general are not screener accessible. They are all of the possible answers are laid out in front of you. The other thing I did not do is there are no other or blanks that you can fill in where you can describe yourself, because those forms are not screener accessible. I can create like an other option and then create a blank. So if you need additional accessibility, you can then fill out the other section in the next question. But if I do that, I will literally have to increase the number of questions in the demographic section by double. And demographics are hard to get people to fill out in the first place. So I would highly suggest not doing other as an option.
Sarah, do you think the average person would know what a victim witness advocate would be, like what their role would be in a context of this type of form?
I mean, we can describe that. Again, all of these questions, like there's room here to kind of give more information. That is one of the benefits of Google Forms. I can make these just like these questions more than one sentence long. I can give people more context.
Yeah, I think I would echo that, as well as I would worry that someone would check yes there and then neglect to actually give their contact information, right? So I'd also say a victim witness advocate is blah, blah, blah. If you would like one, please be sure to give us your contact information.
That's fine. I can definitely add that.
And the other thing I would add is under 9, you can actually give us your name. This is just spitballing because I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but I'd like to say, you know, frequently, okay, so when someone can, what I want to say is something like, we often can't resolve a complaint because we don't have enough information. So keep that in mind if you're willing to provide us with information that can help us actually resolve the complaint.
So
Say
one
that.
of the things we can do is in this section up here, under either the form itself, I can describe what the form is for. I can describe, there's like, currently I have not done that because this is just a draft, but I can describe what the form is for. I can describe the limitations of the form. I can link it to another form. So I can say, and I would suggest that we do that. Like we say like this form is so that you can provide, you know, basic like this form will not necessarily result in investigation. If you would like your incident to be investigated, you may also want to submit it here and here. So we can do this in multiple ways.
So we are not asked the Brookline Police Department if we can, if the victim witness advocate can be a resource in this forum.
We've
So,
not yet asked them, no.
right, so.
I was listed as the person that they could contact. As I've discussed with the chairs, I think that's really beyond my role in the sense that like I am not trained to interact with victims of crime or anyone who is making a complaint against the police. And I also, if I were asked to attend any sort of complaint, I have no right to speak as an advocate. So I would suggest that we connect them to the victim witness advocate that was mentioned in one of the reports this evening.
So it sounds like the intent is to have a vote on approving this today.
Yeah, no,
I mean, can we vote conditional on talking to the police department about the victim witness advocate?
yeah, I think it's too late to vote for a final thing because we're also talking about adding some more content, even if it's explaining the questions. So we don't have to vote on it today. But, you know, the discussion we're gonna have today, and if we were ready to vote on it, then I would vote. But I think we should not vote on it today.
So, Deputy Superintendent Campbell, what do you think of our suggestion?
There are definitely some things, I think probably most of the things that we would get from this form that are outside the scope of what the advocate does.
Okay,
I think that it's I don't know. I'm not sure most of the people that are filling this out are victims. In the sense that she's, you know, she works with, you know, domestic violence, you know, people filing for restraining orders, people victimized in domestic violence, things like that. That tends to be the types of things that she does.
okay.
That's just my, not that there couldn't be something, but I think most of the, because realistically, we're talking about negative feedback only. Right, if somebody submits something neutral or positive feedback, probably isn't going to feel the need to meet with the victim witness advocate. And I just think most of what we get is probably not going to be relevant to her.
What other person besides internal affairs officer who we're thinking of somebody who's more a civilian rather than a police officer?
I'm sorry, I missed some of that.
We were thinking of a person who's a civilian rather than a police officer for the first contact, so it doesn't frighten people away.
So I guess my question would be in what So this is when it's not a complaint,
Correct.
say, this is someone letting us know I had a bad,
All right.
Well, we did get, I mean, the last two complaints that came in via this form were,
It could be, but usually it's not.
I'm not, yeah, I'm just not sure that we have somebody in the police station that is, I'm trying to think if we have someone, a civilian that is, because what would their role be, to act like as an advocate for the person who had the negative? I mean, generally speaking, I think that the person to make the contact is the internal affairs person.
That has been, so if there was a complaint, I typically, where somebody wants to be contacted, the person who gets access to this form besides me is Ray, or whomever is filling the role of the internal affairs officer at the time, and they have made first contact.
Deputy, Superintendent Campbell. So I have a question. I know that last year there was, there was a social worker, part-time associated with the police department. Is there still a social worker, or has that role been replaced by the witness advocate, the victim witness advocate?
No, those roles are separate. We have, we actually, the advocate has a social work background, but we do have Annabelle Lane. She is a social worker for the department. And we also have another one, Megan Kennedy, who does, her primary focus is around crisis intervention training within the department, but you know, she does assist on some of these as well.
Okay, so I can imagine it either way, but just to ask the question, would one of the social workers be, I'll say, a closer fit to what we want to do here, or not?
You know, I can imagine situations where the answer would be yes. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking back to the feedback that we've gotten over the last, let's say over the last year, that's been negative.
I can show you the report for the I mean, it
No,
been back for several years.
No, I see what you've sent out, Sarah. You know, in my opinion, you know, the short answer is no, not really. Although there may be some instances where the answer is yes, but in my opinion, you know, the best person for the initial review on that is the internal affairs lieutenant. You know, to look at, you know, what is alleged and, you know, begin looking into it.
So we'll strike that, and we'll put in internal affairs officer.
I think the only other thing that I'd suggest is maybe a link to the PCAC agenda list. If there's a site on the Brookline site where you can see all the upcoming PCAC meetings, and just mention that these are reviewed monthly at the PCAC meeting, so that if someone did want to find out what happened to their case, even if you can't email it to them, they could tune into this, see the recording or whatnot, and see that we actually did review their thing.
Okay. For my purposes, it would be very helpful if someone could write down all the things that they would like changed or added to this form, and then
Okay.
send them to me in an email so that I can.
Let me just say it out loud so I
For
can
next.
email it to her. So you wanted a definition of the rest of the victim witness. That's out. Well, I wanted some statement in the provided identifying information, trying to explain that we can, it helps us a lot in actually following up, being able to do something about their complaint if we can do it. I can't draft that on the fly, but that's something explaining why we want their contact information.
We could probably just, in number 3, right? It says, please be as specific as possible. The more details provided, the better we can investigate this issue.
Yeah, but I kind of want that down at number 9 where we're actually asking for their contact information because we get
I
a
can
lot
do
of
it. I
complaints
can do
here.
it twice. I
Yeah,
can say, please describe what best would happen, where, how you felt about it. Please be as
Yeah.
specific as possible. The more information you provide us, the better we can investigate.
the
The
more
same
information.
thing in number 9.
Yeah. Investigate, something, and I
Or
wanted,
maybe not use the word investigate because we are not investigators. Maybe use the word follow up.
follow up, yeah,
Review. whatever.
review, yeah. I'm willing to let someone else wordsmith it. I'm just trying to get the rough idea. And we're moving, victim witness
Right.
advocate, more information. Something about more information that we can follow up review on both 3 and on 9. I wanted a link to the agenda for this meeting. And Sarah, you said something about having some information at the very top that says what the
Yeah,
process.
I think that so there is I believe on the current SurveyMonkey form, it actually explains at the end of the form, which is one of the things I do not like. If you what you really meant to do is make a formal complaint, this is where you should go. Because there is nowhere in the beginning of the SurveyMonkey form where you can where the writer is allowed to communicate like the limits of the form to the user. So I think that there was some way that it was like, or this form does this, but you may also want to put your information here. I would suggest that we explain what this form is for and then what the other options are. There is a PCAC civilian complaint form. There is a police department civilian complaint form. Here are the links to both. Use decide how you would like to, communicate with us to, based on your own discretion or whatever.
So my list has 4 changes: removing victim advocate, adding something about more information, we can better follow up, whatever. A link to the PCAC agenda, and then information at the very top about the process of the 3 forms. Does anyone else have any? Did I get anything that people mentioned?
My pet change is 13 East Asian, in parentheses, Chinese, Vietnamese, or whatever East Asian means, because I don't know what East
Yeah.
Asian means.
So, okay, if we're gonna start doing that, how much then we
No,
should do it for
not more
everything.
checkboxes, just an explanation of what we
It
think.
was included in
Yeah.
what,
Yeah, I don't use the word, I don't use the terminology East Asian, so
Yeah,
Okay. So if there are specific changes to demographic terminology, somebody else should write it and tell me exactly what they want to see. Because
I can do it.
Can I
Okay.
just say each? Do we have to break it up?
Yeah, well, I know that was an interesting discussion that the 2 chairs and Sarah had. The reason why I was most in favor of breaking out of it because in my experience, people from South Asians, people from like India and Pakistan are very different from people from, say, Japan or the Philippines. And so I like the idea of being able to distinguish those.
yeah.
That's where I was coming from.
I think having some suggested countries, I see it beside each one, would help clarify to folks
Okay.
who aren't.
somebody else make that list and
Yeah.
I'll put that list in.
I
I'm not
listed it
writing
down
that
thing
list.
and that
Yeah,
Ron will,
I can do it.
Ron will do it.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
I will do that.
All I'm doing is putting the list of 5
Okay.
points.
I'm surprised those aren't like a standard list for cross.
So there is a standard list in that the
you already
standard
discussed it
EO
all.
list is
So,
very short.
that-
It's
that is
5
good.
things.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We want more.
Um, do we need this to come back one more time after those changes are made? I'm willing to make a motion that says we can go ahead and post that once those 5 changes are
Can
made.
can I suggest that you do not do that? Because
Okay,
I really would like the committee to make a conscious choice that we are shutting down the SurveyMonkey and moving to this form and we do it like without any I don't want to bring it back next month and then somebody doesn't like one of the sentences and then we're both of the forms are live. No, I would like to make a choice.
Okay,
All right. So we'll table that.
we'll
Okay.
I have on my list, I will email the chairs and Sarah the list of items and.
Right. Thank you,
Verbiage.
Scott.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep on moving. It's getting late.
Yeah, it's getting late, but we're pretty much at the end. Discussion of future topics and agenda. Anybody have any ideas for future topics?
I'm just putting ice review on the.
Yeah, right.
From the-
We'll be there.
From the discussion, it sounds like maybe a follow-up on the negative civilian complaints.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think both. We had a couple questions from the school principal ones and yours about aggression. Was that the same complaint or a different?
Well, I think it just sounded like even the follow through of it sounds like the IA of the first one. That is still ongoing, so that would be a follow-up on civilian complaints for sure.
Okay.
And then
Mhm.
I volunteered also to do a deeper session on AI, and it would just be sort of an overview of some of the research that I've been doing and sort of presenting it to the committee.
I started the logistic conversation about the data entry. It's possible they'll say that next meeting is the right time, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
Today.
By the way, I in the email that you sent to them, and I may have missed this, I only skimmed it. You mentioned that the next meeting is being September, but I have that down when in July 21st.
Yeah,
We're doing July 21st.
Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah.
July
So then,
25.
according to
Just from this.
according-
agenda. So is this more?
according to what you guys have been committed to and what I've
Cool.
put in the system, your next meeting is July 21st.
You're right, you're right. I saw that and I read it as June and thought that was today's meeting.
all right,
Okay, I'll send a update, yeah.
so make a motion to adjourn? Okay.
1 second. I want to just bring into the I want to bring it to the committee's attention that one term is expiring soon. That would I think so. Just be on top of the member roster.
You want to re-up, you need to ask the select board.
Do I need to officially apply for that?
I don't think I'm not sure what
I think I was only for a year.
so if
The-
some
Yeah.
terms are 2 years long, it might be that you were filling in for
Yeah.
an opening that came up and so it was only available for a year. If you need to reapply, I think there's a the apply button is up here.
Yes, I couldn't find that button. Oh, yes, I did. September 1st, wow, look at that.
So I wanted to because quorum depends on the number of people who should be on the commission or the committee, not the number of people who are on the committee. So if we are down to 5 members and we still need we still need 4 people for quorum. So I don't want to lose members and have open spots unless we absolutely have to.
So, just to clarify, I need to click that apply button and just
I believe
reapply.
so. I believe so, and I would do so soon because
That's the
again, let me go back. I'm sorry. The
Yeah,
last-
I see that
um,
the very first question on that apply is reappointment or new application.
Yeah, so the reappointment process is the same as being appointed in the first place. So I just don't want like your meeting in
Yeah.
July and then the next meeting is September, so I wanted to make sure you had at least one meeting to kind of get that information to the select board. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So, at this
Thank you.
point, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I second it.
Okay,
Right,
um,
thank you, Christine.
okay, so, roll call, we'll start with, John,
John Hilliard, aye.
Paul,
Yes.
Scott,
Hi.
Joe,
Hi.
Christine,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Right.
So the, meeting is adjourned.
8:42 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Fair enough. Thank
Good
you.
night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Happy